Morning, good afternoon, good evening. As usual, it's whatever time of day it is, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to today's Grain Market Blast with myself and the amazing Angie. She's here already. Lightning. Let's send the invite over. Whilst we're waiting for Angie to join, I will do the legals. So, as usual, nothing discussed on this basis session constitute trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ Global Limited, Traders PIQ or PIQ Suite, or indeed that of the hosts, which, as you know by now, is the amazing Angie Setzer. Way and the amazing Ryan Page.
Yippee!
How are
Good.
you? Tuesday.
I am super. It's Tuesday. Thanks for asking. I always enjoy Tuesday for some reason. I don't know why.
Oh,
I think I kind of always just enjoy most days. I don't know. It's just the way I try to roll. But yeah, how are you today? Happy
I'm
Tuesday.
very good. I've had some very good phone calls. I've had some very good meetings. So something's going to happen and ruin my day at some point. But for now, we're riding on the crest of the wave. So
Yeah, we
this,
just keep the wave. You just gotta, it's called manifesting. You just, like it might be delusional to some, but we call it manifesting. It's gonna be a great day. So,
I'll take
uh,
it. Done.
having said that, let's start with what the heck is going on. And honestly, I'm not sure. You tell me. Market wise today, yesterday we saw one of those things, and this is me, kind of outside of my wheelhouse 100%. Like I posted that tweet yesterday about folks talking about AI, dude eating a sub sandwich. That's me, just kind of here, to see what the heck is going on. But it is interesting, and I think it is something that we have to pay attention to. And so a lot of folks might be like, "Why is the grain girl talking about AI?" But when it comes down to it, that DeepSeek deal yesterday was the biggest story in business, and really, when you look at it. From an overall standpoint, what is it? What is causing the problems, or what are we watching here? And is there a potential there where we are, kind of overvalued in that tech space or whatever? And like I said, this is me on the outside looking in, but obviously, part of money flow, or part of the flow of money that we've seen over the last year has been, you saw a lot of folks shorting commodities, and you saw a lot of folks, piling into these tech stocks and things like that. And so it was super interesting to kind of learn yesterday, or see yesterday, that potentially China's over there. Biden has really been working, the Biden administration had really been working to limit their access to these high end chips, which to me I thought were the fanciest Doritos that you could get. But it turns out, they're super important. And Biden had been limiting this access, but they were still able to kind of create this AI assistant tool that folks are saying is as good as Chat GPT or whatever, for pennies on the dollar, $8 million or whatever, compared to hundreds of billions apparently in the US tech space that we've been hearing about. And so on top of that, what does this mean for what Chinese developers will be able to do if they were to access those high end chips, and some of these other things? Like, does it impact sentiment? Does it impact money flow? Does it impact outside markets and just the amount of cash that's available? It feels like it could, but again, it's
Yeah.
not really my, main space. But I feel like it's something that, even though, even as a grain trader, you have to be paying attention, because it could have a huge influence on, money flow here over the next few
Well,
weeks.
exactly. It determines the whole risk on, risk on, risk off
Yeah.
dynamic of the day, right? So as we saw yesterday, yesterday was a risk off day. Yeah, it's just the way things go.
Yeah.
One thing I will flag, obviously, it's all this, the buzzwords and all that are flying, and I am very much at the deep end of the pool here. Like I'm literally just tiptoeing and trying to sound like I know remotely what I'm talking about when we talk about AI. But one thing I am quite keen on is the whole open source idea. Primarily, if we can get it open source within pubs, because it sounds like they just give stuff away. So I'm all for an open source pub if anyone knows one.
Right. Could you hook me up with a nice ale? Is that,
Yeah,
did I just take over your call? Appropriate your culture. That's what it was there for
yeah,
a quick second.
yeah.
But
It's my culture is your culture.
I love it. So that is one thing that we are watching, and obviously something that's super important, and could have influence on all kinds of tech things going forward too. And in production agriculture, we have lots of tech and lots of AI being introduced, and this, that, and the other thing. And so on top of that, as someone who loves her TikTok, it makes me wonder, what's the government going to do if this is all of a sudden what we're doing? Like, first Red Note, now DeepSeek. Okay, cool. Let's see where we go. second point, and probably, even more important, or not even probably, I don't know, probably more important, is the conflict within the Trump administration. Like, are we tariffing first and talking later? Are we gradually implementing these
Spin the
2.5%
wheel.
tariffs?
Spin the wheel.
Right, exactly. Like, today is the day you get to guess what we're going to do. And so that's the thing to me, that I'm really watching, because we have this self-imposed Saturday deadline. And so I think part of what you had seen yesterday, in the market structure itself, and part of what that sell-off was driven by, was we saw that Trump over the weekend was like, screw you, Colombia. Like, I don't care. Here's 25% tariffs. It's going to 50 in a week. Like, play with fire, get burnt. And so I think yesterday was kind of one of those ideas where, or one of those thoughts, we had seen that article come out that, Lutnick and Stephen Miller are really pushing this, hit them hard, and then let them come back to beg you. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. Like, you make it punitive right off the get-go, and then we're going to just wield this big stick. And so that was kind of the sentiment yesterday, is we're going to be the big stick wielders. And that's not necessarily what the markets would like, or not necessarily really helpful for grain trade. If we come in Saturday morning, and all of a sudden we got a 25% tariff on Mexico's, business, and then they say they're going to respond in kind or whatever, we have a significant amount of corn that's outstanding. Now, I will say Mexico is kind of a captive audience at this point. Pretty much anyone in the world right now, when it comes to corn, is a bit of a captive audience, because the U.S. is really the only supplier of consequence until Brazil and Argentina get their crop into the pipeline. But obviously we have to watch what that means for trade going forward. And with Mexico being one of our largest buyers of corn, that's a problem. That's something that we have to pay attention to. And so we have this sort of, I'm going to say, Lutnick's on one end, Besant's on the other. And Besant is wants to be more moderate, more even keel, this 2.5% universal thing. Trump did say he wants much bigger tariffs than that. But everyone's kind of, I'll say everyone, some folks are of the mindset that this would be a more moderate approach. And that it is something that, if we were to see it, it would be healthier, for grain trade and things like that. If we were to be like a 2.5%, Besant says it'll give businesses time to adjust, and countries a chance to negotiate. And so if we were to see that, be kind of interesting. It'd be a different idea than 60% on China day one. And so point two, or three, excuse me, I can't count. I'm new here. Point three, South American weather and production outlook. Obviously, our friends at AIQ came out with their updated production outlook yesterday. Their forecasts, like, if you're not following, you should be. They use more of a heavily AI, going back to the AI, but they use, a little bit more in the way of a different weather forecast tool. They're using both the GFS, the Euro, all of the other factors out there, and kind of putting them together as, the computer's reading and saying what's been the most accurate and what looks like it'll be the most accurate. And they're saying that there's a continuation of concern and the potential that we could see the Argentina corn crop, lose upwards of 4 million metric tons of its production potential, a couple hundred million bushels, and with the idea, our friends at AgriInvest yesterday, our Brazilian cash brokers and analytical group that we work with, they kind of pointed out that we're closing in on, a 2 to 3 week delay in safrinha planting. And now conditions are improving, and we really could see, this get underway and really start to rock and roll. But in years past, when we've seen these types of delays, according to their records, we can look at a 10 to 15% production loss potentially from the beginning to the end. And I kind of mentioned that yesterday, but I don't know if the market's really understanding what that means, mostly because we've been told for so long that we have too much corn, and that it's, even as recently as August or September, we were looking at burdensome supplies. There's been this worry that we'll have too many corn acres planted, blah, blah, blah. But if we lose 4, 5, 6 million metric ton of production in Argentina, and we lose, a percentage, like a 10 to 15% of safrinha loss, would be more like a 10 million metric ton loss, maybe 9 to 10 million metric ton loss in Brazil. That's huge. You're talking about encroaching on, a 15 million metric ton loss of corn would be, 500 million bushels, 600 million bushels. And so we just really have to watch because we're not out of the woods. I'm not saying that because I'm like, oh my God, we're insanely bullish. Hold on. But you just, one of those things where we are far from out of the woods. And so a lot of folks want to focus on the tariff risk without recognizing that really, when it comes down to it, there's a production risk that is still there with zero room for movement.
Well, this
And
is
so
it,
that's
right?
something we'll be watching. Yeah.
So often you find in these times where like your attention is on one risk and then something seemingly for the right in front of you, it seems more important right now. So you take your focus off what was your big risk. You focus
Yes.
on the new big risk, and you can become kind of blinkered and you can kind of become blind to other risks.
Yes.
And I think that's something that's going to probably play out for, well, I'll say potentially for the length of this next term, but definitely for the foreseeable, where there's just so many moving parts going on at the moment that you really do need to have eyes in the back of your head at the moment, and that's why you need to tune into shows like ours every day.
Oh, yes, I love it. Look at you.
Yes.
You're like a professional over here. The one thing I am going to add, though, too, I want to throw out there is, and this is
I want to throw up at my own self-promotion. Sorry.
Right? I know. I'm like, I'm just repulsed over here by what you just did, but it's okay. We'll get used to it. One thing I do want to point out, and there was a conversation I'd had with a grower at a market outlook not long ago, and I actually had this conversation with a friend of mine here, another trader recently. And Carl and I have talked about it. I think you and I have talked about it before. Where it's like this market sometimes gets confused on what it should be focusing on.
Yeah.
A lot of times we like to talk about, things, and this was a conversation that I'd had where this guy kept saying, well, then this happens, and then that happens, and this happens. And finally I said, sir, you are talking about things that matter 3 to 6 years from now. I am talking about things that matter 3 to 6 months from now. And so I'm not going
even
to
you
take
might be a little bit
away.
too far-sighted.
That's just it. I'm not going to take away, from these long-term outlooks and what they mean, but I will say that we have to be careful not to be like, well, if this, and that happens, then this is going to, okay, cool. We need to get through this week. We need to get through this month, and so these are the things that I'm looking at right now is we got a lot going on. So
funny enough, I think it's without it being a shameless plug for CME, but CME's latest products about the agricultural markets, in the corn, where the weekly options. I think it's a great time for them to bring for those guys to bring these out, because it means you can there are options placed to be had on major weather events, major reports that are coming out, and major risk factors that are, like as you said, in the here and now. It's great to have your 5-6 year plans of what you think is going to happen and stuff like that. But especially when you're talking about more on the investing side of it, when you're talking in terms of just the hedging side of it, you need to be able to act and be so nimble at the moment. There you go.
Yeah, makes a huge difference. So definitely keep tuning in if you can. Like, I'm trying not to self-promote here because it makes me break out in hives. But we have a lot. There are a lot.
Someone else promote for us.
Yes, exactly. We'll just hire a hype man. But yeah, there are a lot of movie pieces, tons of things to be paying attention to. And so we'll see what today is. But the fun part is, it's like for every day that it feels like we're gonna have these big down days, like not long after the market's like, but wait a minute,
exactly.
Here we go.
Come back.
Yeah, so there's something for everyone. We got that going for us, at least.
Perfect. Well, Angie, thank you so much as usual. Listeners, especially our regular listeners, we know who you are and we really appreciate you tuning in every day. And yeah, that's it for today. And tune in tomorrow, where Angie will be bringing you the good stuff and I'll just be sitting here listening along like the rest of you. Maybe a bit of comedy relief.
Bringing all of the good stuff. Have a good Tuesday, you guys. We'll be back tomorrow.
Have a great one. Bye-bye.